Chain of custody is a fundamental principle in maintaining the integrity of investigative records. In simple terms, it is the documented history of how evidence was collected, handled, stored, transferred, and protected throughout the investigation process. In a workplace investigation, interview records themselves are evidence. This includes handwritten interview notes, signed statements, audio or video recordings, transcripts, and electronic records. These materials may later be reviewed by senior management, unions, arbitrators, courts, or regulatory bodies. Therefore, investigators must be able to demonstrate that the records presented are the same records that were originally created and that they have not been altered, replaced, or improperly accessed. A strong chain of custody process creates a clear and chronological trail. It answers 4 basic questions. What was collected? When was it collected? Who handled it? And where was it stored? For every important piece of interview evidence, investigators should document the circumstances of acquisition. This includes identifying who obtained the record, the date and time it was created or collected, and the method by which it was obtained. The investigator must also maintain a record of every person who handled the evidence. Each transfer of possession should be documented, including who received the material, when the transfer occurred, and the reason for the transfer. This creates accountability and prevents uncertainty about what happened to the evidence during the investigation. Storage location is another important part of chain of custody. Investigators should always know where original interview records are located. If a document, recording, or file is moved from one secure location to another, that movement should be recorded. The condition of the evidence should also be documented. For example, if a signed statement is collected, the investigator should note its condition at the time of collection. This helps demonstrate that the document remained unchanged throughout the investigation. Physical interview records require particular attention because they can be vulnerable to questions about alteration. Handwritten notes and signed statements should be properly identified as investigation materials. Investigators should mark documents appropriately, using methods such as dates, initials, or case identifiers, while ensuring that the markings do not interfere with the original content. Physical documents should be stored securely. In some investigative environments, documents may be placed in sealed envelopes or protective containers, with the seal marked to show whether the material has been opened or accessed. For interview notes, investigators should use practices that protect against allegations of tampering. This may include using a bound notebook or ensuring that loose pages are numbered, organized, and clearly identified. Original notes should always be preserved. Working copies may be used for analysis, but the original record should remain protected in the investigation file. Digital interview records require additional safeguards because electronic files can be modified without obvious physical signs. Audio recordings, video recordings, and electronic notes should be stored using secure systems with appropriate access restrictions. Where digital evidence requires a higher level of forensic handling, investigators may use technical methods such as file integrity checks or forensic imaging to demonstrate that the original data has not been altered. The principle is simple. The original evidence should be preserved, and any analysis should be performed on a verified copy whenever possible. Access control is another essential part of maintaining the chain of custody. Investigation records should not be treated like ordinary workplace documents. They should be stored separately in a confidential investigation file, with access limited to individuals who have a legitimate business need. Typically, this may include the lead investigator, legal counsel, and specific management representatives responsible for decision-making. Every access event should be documented where appropriate, including who accessed the file, when they accessed it, and the reason for access. This need-to-know approach protects both the investigation and the participants. It reduces the risk of confidentiality breaches, workplace gossip, witness influence, and allegations that information was improperly shared. A broken chain of custody can create serious problems for an investigation. If there are unexplained gaps in how evidence was handled, opposing parties may challenge the reliability of the records. They may question whether documents were changed, whether information was incomplete, or whether the evidence can be trusted. In legal proceedings, this may affect whether evidence is accepted or how much weight it receives. Poor evidence handling can also damage the credibility of the investigator and the organization. One particularly serious issue is spoliation. Spoliation refers to the destruction, loss, or improper alteration of evidence, whether intentional or accidental. The failure to preserve investigation records can create significant legal consequences and may lead to allegations that the organization attempted to interfere with the fact-finding process. Ultimately, chain of custody is about protecting the story of the evidence. A strong investigation does not only collect information, it preserves that information in a way that others can trust. By maintaining a clear record of possession, secure storage, and controlled access, investigators ensure that their findings are supported by evidence that remains reliable, authentic, and defensible.